Admit it, you skipped half the Zombies games and now you're lost AF on the storyline. Want the full timeline cheat sheet before the new drop? This video packs every major event in the Call of Duty Zombies saga into one straight shot. No fluff, no confusion, just the real story. Buckle up, Otessi, let's start at the actual beginning. The creation of the Aether and the Keepers. The Zombies timeline starts in the Aether. The Aether is a place outside normal time and space. There are no planets, no life, and no physical objects, only empty energy. Over a very long time, this energy began to form simple shapes. One shape became a mind. This mind was the first one. It did not grow or evolve. It just appeared once the Aether became organized enough. Easy for the universe, but it caused problems later. The first one changed the Aether and created the Keepers. Keepers are powerful beings that can move between dimensions and change reality. They became the main rulers of the Aether. Two Keepers became important. Their names were Monty and the Shadowman. They understood the Aether better than the others. A special object existed in this realm called the Summoning Key. It can hold souls, change timelines, and bend the rules of the universe. Monty used it to build Agartha, a safe and controlled world. The Aether also had a second connected dimension called the Dark Aether. Time moved strangely there, and its energy corrupted anything that entered it. When some Keepers explored it, they changed. Their bodies twisted, and their minds broke. These corrupted Keepers became the Apothecans. The Shadowman took control of the Apothecans. Monty and the other Keepers fought them. This started the first big war in the entire Zombies story. The Keepers won and locked the Apothecans inside the Dark Aether, but the Apothecans were patient. They began looking for a way to escape and return to real worlds. Their plan to do that leads to almost every major disaster that happens next. Dark Aether, corruption, and the First War. After the war in the Aether, the Apothecans were trapped in the Dark Aether. They could not escape, but they did not stop trying. Over many ages, the Dark Aether changed them even more. Their bodies grew into giant monsters, parasites, and strange shapes that did not follow normal rules. Good place for a vacation if you enjoy pain and corruption. The Shadowman became their leader. He searched for weak spots in reality. He found one target that had what the Apothecans needed, Earth. But Earth did not exist as one single world. It had many versions across the multiverse. Each version had a different timeline. The Apothecans discovered something useful. Humans loved conflict. Wars, fights, mistakes, all of these created cracks in reality. If the Apothecans could increase chaos on Earth, they could weaken the barrier between worlds. Their first step was simple. They threw meteorites of element 115 at different versions of Earth. Element 115 is a strange material from the Dark Aether. It can bring dead bodies back to life, change human minds, and break time. Basically, it is the worst science experiment ingredient ever made. The meteorites landed on early Earth and stayed buried for thousands of years. Humans did not understand them yet, but they would eventually dig them up, and humans always test things they should not touch. The Apothecans counted on that. Before humans reached that point, one version of Earth faced something even worse. In the late 1200s, the Apothecans broke through a weak spot and attacked directly. Their monsters spread across the land. Humans tried to fight, but they did not understand what they were facing. The Keepers stepped in and helped. Together, humans and Keepers fought a huge battle called the Great War. It pushed the Apothecans back into the Dark Aether. The Apothecans lost, but their goal stayed the same: find another way into real worlds and finish what they started. Ancient human history and the Great War. The Great War is the first time humans became part of the Zombies timeline. It showed that Earth was already involved in the fight between the Keepers and the Apothecans long before modern history. During the 1200s, the Apothecans found a weak spot in one version of Earth and broke through it. Their creatures appeared across the land. Humans had no idea where these monsters came from, but they tried to fight back. Swords and shields did not work well against giant corruption beasts, but they tried anyway. The Keepers decided to help. They formed an alliance with the humans and guided 4 warriors. Each warrior used a special elemental staff. One used fire, one used ice, one used lightning, and one used wind. These 4 fighters became the heroes of the Great War. With Keeper support and the elemental staffs, the humans pushed the Apothecans back. They sealed the breach and forced the monsters into the Dark Aether again. People later called these 4 warriors Primis, which means the first. Even though this war was one of the biggest events in early history, most records of it disappeared. Over time, people treated the stories like myths or legends. One person left clues behind. His name was Pablo Morenas. He survived the Great War and wrote about what he saw. Most people ignored him because his stories sounded impossible, but his writings became important later in the timeline. After the war ended, the Keepers continued watching Earth. The Apothecans stayed trapped, but never gave up their goal. Element 115 remained hidden in the ground, waiting for humans to discover it. Once humans found 115 again, the entire timeline began to change. The Old West and the Agarthan device. Many years after the Great War, the timeline moves to the 1800s in the American Old West. This part of the story looks small, but it sets up one of the most important items in the entire Zombies timeline, the Agarthan device. A man named Jeb Brown lived in a quiet town. He had no idea the Aether or Dark Aether even existed. He was not a scientist or a warrior. He simply enjoyed building things. Some of the materials he worked with contained traces of element 115, but he did not know what that meant. Jeb believed he could create a device that connected the real world to Agartha, the realm Monty built. To finish it, he needed three things: an elemental shard, the blood of an ancient being, and a strange tool called the Vril device. Jeb managed to create the Vril device, but he could not find the other two ingredients. Even so, his invention still caused unusual effects. His machines produced the early energy that would later inspire the Pack-a-Punch system, which upgrades weapons. As time went on, the Vril device gave off more unstable energy. This energy slowly pulled Jeb's entire town into a pocket dimension connected to the Dark Aether. The town became stuck between worlds and would later reappear as a place where survivors fought zombies. Jeb had no idea that his simple project had touched a cosmic force, but this event proved something important. Human inventions could open cracks in reality, even without knowing it. And if small inventions could do that, bigger discoveries would cause bigger problems. Element 115 was waiting to be found again, and once humans dug it up, the entire universe would feel it. World War II and Group 935. Element 115 became a major problem once humans finally discovered it during World War II. Different countries found small deposits, but Germany pushed the research the hardest. A scientist named Dr. Ludwig Maxis created a team called Group 935. Their goal was to build advanced technology using 115. Their slogan was, "To improve the human condition," which was a polite way of saying they wanted to win the war with science experiments that probably should not exist. Dr. Edward Richtofen joined Group 935. At first he worked normally, but long exposure to 115 began to damage his mind. He started hearing voices, including the Shadowman. This made Richtofen create his own secret plans that did not match Max's goals. Group 935 tried to build teleporters. Most tests failed. Failed tests produced the first modern zombies, which was a strong sign that the project needed to be shut down. It was not shut down. They also created early wonder weapons. These weapons used 115 energy to cause massive damage. Again, not the safest idea, but they continued anyway. During one teleporter test, Richtofen was sent to the moon by accident. There he found the MPD, also called the Ether Pyramid. When he touched it, something in the pyramid reached into his mind and corrupted him even more. This event pushed Richtofen deeper into his own plans for power. Back on Earth, Maxis kept working with 115. His daughter, Samantha, lived at the facility. Richtofen saw Maxis and Samantha as obstacles. He tried to get rid of them by teleporting them away. Samantha ended up inside the MPD, which gave her control over the zombies. Maxis was sent to the crazy place where only his voice survived. This moment marked the true beginning of the modern zombie outbreaks. It also marked the point where multiple people were fighting for control of the ether at the same time. The rise of Ultimis. After Samantha gained control of the zombies through the MPD, Richtofen needed a team to help him reach the moon again and take that power from her. He chose 3 test subjects who had already been exposed to element 115. Their memories were wiped, which made them easier for Richtofen to control. These 3 men became Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo. Together with Richtofen, they formed the group known as Ultimis. None of them joined by choice. They were simply the only available options who survived the experiments long enough to walk. Richtofen took Ultimis across several outbreak sites. Each location had element 115, unstable technology, or both. These places included Shi No Numa, Riese, Kino Ascension, and Shangri-La. The team fought through each outbreak while Richtofen continued shaping his plan. Richtofen needed the Vril device to take control of the MPD. He eventually found it in a Siberian research station. With all the required parts gathered, Richtofen returned to the moon. There, he completed his plan. Richtofen entered the MPD and switched places with Samantha. This gave him full control over the zombie horde. Their eye color turned blue to show that Richtofen was now in charge, but Maxis had survived inside electronic systems. He contacted a different group known as Victus and used them to activate a missile strike on Earth. The strike caused massive destruction and even more zombie outbreaks. Maxis did this to stop Richtofen and regain influence over the ether. Earth was now heavily damaged. Richtofen controlled the zombies. Maxis controlled surviving technology. Ultimis followed Richtofen without understanding the full impact of his actions. This set up the next stage of the timeline, where the story expands across multiple universes instead of just one. Primis and the multiverse era. After Earth was destroyed by Max's missile strike, Richtofen finally learned how large the ether system really was. He discovered a book called the Chronorium. This book showed every timeline, every outcome, and every version of major events. It also showed that Richtofen had failed in many universes, sometimes in impressive new ways. The Chronorium explained that the only way to stabilize reality was to collect the purified souls of Richtofen, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo from specific timelines. These versions of the characters were younger and less damaged by element 115. They became known as Primis. Primis Richtofen led this group. Their mission was simple to state but difficult to perform: track down their older selves, eliminate them, and store their purified souls inside the summoning key. Each soul was required to help fix the collapsing timelines. Primis traveled across many broken worlds. They visited ancient France, future test sites, Soviet facilities, and even places where other disasters had already happened, such as Morgue City. These visits showed that the multiverse was unstable and that different worlds were mixing together. As Primis continued collecting souls, Dr. Monty revealed himself. He was a keeper who built Agartha, the so-called perfect world. Monty offered to help repair reality, but he also wanted to control the final result. He brought Primis and Samantha into his own protected realm. However, the summoning key still contained the Shadowman. Once released, the Shadowman attacked Monty's realm and tried to merge the Dark Aether with Agartha. Primis fought him and sealed him away, but the event exposed another problem. Monty realized Primis should not exist anymore. They had used the blood of the damned, which came from people trapped in time loops. This made Primis a threat to the stability of the new world Monty wanted to create. To protect his perfect realm, Monty decided they had to be removed. This caused the ether cycle to repeat over and over, creating countless loops across the multiverse. The end of the ether. After the Shadowman was defeated, Primis learned that Monty was not a true protector. He wanted a perfect world with no risks. Anything that could threaten his new reality had to be removed, including Primis, Samantha, and every broken universe connected to the ether. While traveling between dimensions, Primis received a message saying the chronorium had changed. This meant the timeline had shifted. Richtofen checked the book and discovered he was no longer the one meant to complete the plan. A different version of Richtofen stepped out of a cryopod and took his place. This Richtofen passed the chronorium to Nikolai, making him the new leader of the group. Nikolai read the updated timeline. He learned that the ether cycle kept repeating because the original versions of the crew, known as Ultimis, still had their souls linked to the elemental shard. As long as those souls existed in any form, the multiverse could not stabilize. The only solution was complete destruction of all ether-connected universes. Nikolai created a final plan. He gathered Primis, Ultimis, and Samantha in one place. He poisoned the crews to stop them from fighting back. Richtofen, now in zombie form due to earlier events, attacked to try to save the cycle. Nikolai stopped him as well. To end the ether forever, Nikolai used the Agarthan device to destroy the summoning key. This caused every universe connected to the ether to collapse. All the souls tied to the ether were erased. Only 2 people survived the destruction, Samantha and Eddie. Because they were not bound to the ether system in the same way, they were carried into a new world with a clean timeline and no ether influence. This ended the original Zombies universe completely. The Dark Aether reboot. When the ether universe ended, a new timeline formed. This new world had no keepers, no Apothecans, and no ether pyramid, but the Dark Aether still existed. It remained a separate dimension with unstable time, corrupt energy, and creatures shaped by that energy. In this rebooted world, normal Call of Duty history continued. Characters like Mason, Woods, Adler, Price, and Soap lived out their usual events. None of them knew the Dark Aether was active in the background. During World War II, German scientists built a machine called a cyclotron at a site named Project Wind Station. They wanted to create a new power source. Instead, they opened a tear into the Dark Aether. This tear allowed Dark Aether energy and zombies to enter the world again. It also allowed Elder Gods from that dimension to influence events. These Elder Gods had different goals. Some wanted control, others wanted order. None of them planned to make life easier for humans. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union formed research groups to study the Dark Aether threat. The American group was called Requiem. The Soviet group was called Omega. Both teams investigated outbreak zones, searched for artifacts, and fought creatures formed from Dark Aether crystals. Samantha Maxis returned in this timeline. She had almost no memory of her life in the ether, and she still had a connection to the Dark Aether, but she did not fully understand it. Requiem teams discovered corrupted versions of old machines like the Pack-a-Punch and the Mystery Box. They fought new zombies, armored creatures, and giant beings such as the Order and the Forsaken. These missions revealed that the Dark Aether was not just a place, it behaved like a living system with its own rules, leaders, and long-term plans. When Samantha helped defeat the Forsaken, she was pulled back into the Dark Aether. This event prepared the timeline for the next major threat, the Warden and the new multiverse threat. After Samantha was pulled into the Dark Aether, unusual events began on Earth. Dimensional tiers opened in a small American town called Liberty Falls. People vanished, buildings changed shape, and the environment behaved like it was being edited by someone who did not understand basic physics. Inside the Dark Aether, survivors discovered alternate versions of familiar characters. These new versions of Richtofen, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo came from different timelines with different histories. Each variant showed that the multiverse had returned even though the original Ether universe was erased. The main threat in this era was the Warden. He was once a Confederate deserter from the American Civil War. After being attacked by his own town, he survived through violence and isolation. Eventually, he was pulled into the Dark Aether. Its energy twisted him physically and mentally, but it also increased his strength. The Warden developed the ability to mimic voices, including Samantha's. He used this to manipulate people on Earth. His influence reached through dimensional tiers, allowing him to affect towns, survivors, and even soldiers far from the outbreak zones. Inside the Dark Aether, the Warden gained control over ancient beings called Shadowsmiths. These creatures were older than the Apothecans and followed only leaders who showed strength. Under the Warden's rule, they formed a new faction. The Warden began stealing pieces of people's souls. Without these fragments, victims lost memories and parts of their identity. His long-term plan was to break the boundaries between dimensions and pull multiple worlds into the Dark Aether, where he would rule over all of them. Ashes of the Damned. In the Black Ops 7 era, the Dark Aether spreads faster because the Warden is gaining more control. The land around Liberty Falls continues to break apart, turning into areas where normal physics and Dark Aether rules mix. These unstable zones allow new monsters, new mutations, and new elder creatures to appear. A survivor team enters the Dark Aether to investigate these changes. Inside, they find the Shadow Lords expanding their influence. The Warden uses the Shadowsmiths to attack anyone who tries to cross into his territory. His goal is to absorb more worlds into his domain so he can gain full control of the new multiverse. During these missions, the team finds echoes of Samantha, Richtofen, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo. These versions come from alternate timelines where history went differently. They appear as soul fragments, COD showing that the multiverse is still unstable. Each fragment contains memories and traits from its original timeline, even though the Aether universe was destroyed. One major discovery is the return of Dempsey's soul. His essence was pulled into the Dark Aether after the collapse of the Aether universe. The Dark Aether reshaped him, but his identity remained strong enough to resist full corruption. This proves that human souls can survive inside the Dark Aether under certain conditions, which creates a new problem. The Warden can collect these fragments and use them as power sources. The Warden expands his territory by draining soul energy from survivors and from fragments of past timelines. He uses this energy to reshape the land and create more Dark Aether creatures. His long-term goal is to build a single world under his rule, powered by soul fragments from multiple timelines. Ashes of the Damned shows that the Dark Aether is no longer just a separate dimension. It is becoming a multiverse engine that can pull in people, places, and entire timelines. The Warden plans to use this to control every connected world. Can't get enough of zombies? Check out my Wonder Weapons video and my Zombies Maps video.